Welcome back, guys, to another tier list video. This time one that I know a lot of you will be very excited for. We are ranking all the airlines in the Middle East and a few in Africa as well, North Africa and Sub-Saharan Africa. So there's a lot to cover here. I just got off a 12-hour flight, so wish me luck. Which airlines will not be part of this tier list? Which ones have I not flown in over 7 years? That's the rule here. So then we have any Iranian airline. I've never flown any airline from Iran. We have Iraqi Airways. We have Middle East Airlines of Lebanon. We have any Syrian airlines. We have Yemenia from Yemen, Royal Air Maroc, Air Peace, Air Cote d'Ivoire, Air Senegal, South African, which is a shame. I flew them in early 2017, so it's been a long time. Air Mauritius, and Air Austral. In case you're wondering who the heck is this guy, what are his qualifications to talk about this? I have been obsessed with aviation my whole life. That doesn't make me qualified, but I have flown over 200 different airline premium products, over 170 airlines in total, and I've been reviewing airlines for over 11 years now, actually going on 12 years here on YouTube, which you can see. So what are the categories that we will be dividing the airlines into? We have Take My Money, the airlines that I would love to fly, that I'm always excited to fly. We have Take My Points, the airlines that are also great to fly, but maybe I would be a bit more price conscious. I'd be looking for a good deal. We have Red Eyes, which is airlines that are nice to fly as well. They're just below the top airlines in the rankings because this is a very competitive region after all. Then we have Only Option, which is the airlines that I would only fly if there was no other choice. So for example, if the price was way lower than any other option, or these are the only airlines that have award space, then I would fly them. And then there is I'd Rather Swim, which is the airlines or the products that I wouldn't even fly if there was no other choice. Let's dive right in. Let's start here with FlyDubai, which, as much as I like FlyDubai, they do not have any wide bodies yet, which I think ultimately limits them. They're getting the 787 in a few years, which I'm really excited for. I think it's going to be a great development for the airline. But for now, because they only fly wide bodies, they definitely go here. You know, I'm happy to fly FlyDubai, especially on the more unique niche routes that they fly. So if you're going from Dubai to, for example, I flew them Dubai to Sofia earlier this year, then I think they do a great job at that. So FlyDubai straight into Red Eye. Then we have Turkish, and I wanted to include them here because I included them in my European tier list as well, but they really are a hybrid airline. They are based in Europe, yes, because they're on the European side of Istanbul, but they really operate like a Middle Eastern connector where they're taking people from east to west. That is the point of Turkish Airlines. So they have to be included here as well, which I think is fun because what you'll see is that Turkish was in Take My Money on the European tier list. But when you change the context and you're suddenly in a Middle Eastern context, I would say that Turkish Airlines in the Middle East goes, I'm going to put them in Take My Points for now, but we'll see how that changes as we add more airlines. Now we're diving into our first major iconic of the big three Middle Eastern airlines. Etihad is not as big as they used to be, but they're looking to grow a lot. So it's exciting to see where they land on this list, right? And we are starting out with their A380s, and so here I put 787C. That means 787 Classic. So the classic seat that they introduced back in 2014 called the Business Studio, which alternates being forward-facing and rear-facing. It's very similar to a Q Suite, actually, just doesn't have doors. So, or a quad for that matter. So for this, for the Etihad A380 and 787 Classic, I think I'm going to place it here in Take My Points ahead of Turkish Airlines, but it is a seat that's starting to show its age. So, you know, I'm excited to see that be updated a bit. Then we have Etihad's 777s. I'm going to save that for a second. And I'm going to go straight to Etihad's A350, A321LR, and their 787, the new ones, the ones with reverse herringbone seats. I kind of say a lot of bad stuff about flying narrow bodies, in this case, the A321LR, but the seat is really among the best in Etihad's fleet. So I feel good grouping it together because the soft product is pretty much the same, whether you're flying an A350 or an A321LR on Etihad. Although, of course, I would prefer the A350 and the 787 with the new seats. I still feel good putting this right up here and Take My Money because this is Etihad's best product and a product that I'm always very happy and excited to fly. So then we get a little lower on the list, unfortunately, with Etihad's 777. And this is an aircraft that is in desperate need of a retrofit. It's going to be retrofitted soon, as far as I'm aware. But for now, this has got to go. I think it still gets to go in red eye, but on the low end, because this is really starting to show its age. It's fine to fly, but it's not, compared to their A350s or new 787s or anything else, you kind of want to avoid it. Then, unfortunately, we have the lowest of low for Etihad, the A321, the non-LR ones, as well as the A321 Neos and the A320 and their one, I think, A320 Neo. All of these are part of this category. And this for sure needs to go in only option because unfortunately these aircraft are in a very rough state, most of them. They feature old cabin products, or the A321 Neos feature a variety of cabin products because they were acquired from different airlines. So they have Bamboo Airways, for example. And when I flew this earlier this year, it didn't even have a charging port in business class, which I think that is really not up to standard for an airline like Etihad. And that's what makes it only option. I hope that these aircraft will be retrofitted with consistent Etihad cabins soon. They also don't have any in-flight entertainment in economy because they come from that era a few years ago where Etihad was trying to figure out, should they be low cost or what are they doing? You still get the good Etihad soft product, which is why they avoid being in I'd rather swim. Because remember, this is a business class ranking. Unfortunately, this is not economy. This is also not a first class ranking because I review mainly business class and first class on this channel. There's not much economy, which is why we're not considering that. So then we have Gulf Air, an airline that is kind of forgotten in the glitz and glamour of the Middle East. An airline that I think is very high quality, but ultimately suffer from a few limitations by not being part of an alliance, by mainly operating narrow bodies and having very few wide bodies. So on that note, let's divide them up here. So I don't like to start negative, but these are Gulf Air's traditional A320s and A321s. Just like Etihad, these are very, very old products that are in desperate need of a bit of a refresh. And if you're not on an A320 Neo from Gulf Air, which is much nicer, it's not going to be a very glamorous or nice experience. And this is the problem because their 787s are gorgeous. So sort of like Etihad, there's this huge range in what you can get. And you'll see that this will apply to Emirates and Qatar Airways as well. But for now, I'm putting Gulf Air's A320s and A321 LRs here. And again, one reminder, this is in a Middle Eastern and African context. If this was in Europe or North America, all of these would be take my money, okay? Because of the quality. So then we have the A321 Neo from Gulf Air, which is a much, much nicer aircraft. You have lie flat seats on every plane. They're nice. They fly them to Europe a lot, which of course would not be my preferred choice for an aircraft to fly to Europe, but they're there, so you don't have much of a choice. So on that note, I am going to put Gulf Air's A321 Neos right here, I think. Again, we'll get into some discussions on Alliance in a little second and how that impacts my choices here. But then finally, we have Gulf Air's 787s, which are actually gorgeous, beautiful on the inside and the outside. So much so, I don't know if I'd put them ahead of Etihad. It's tough because I think the hard product is nicer than Etihad. The soft product isn't really. They both have gorgeous airports, Etihad and Gulf Air. Bahrain's new airport is lovely, but I think I still have to put Gulf Air here, in my opinion. This is just my preferences. I'm not saying one of these airlines is objectively better than the other, but if I had to choose, this is how I would choose. So now we're on to Egypt Air. We have a small section of African airlines here. I cannot believe I don't have more to put on this ranking, but we have Egypt Air, Ethiopian, and Kenya Airways. And unfortunately, we've got to start a little bit weak here with Egypt Air. I have divided them because they have one aircraft, the 787, that is significantly nicer than their others, which we'll get to. But I think ultimately their 787 deserves to go here because the hard product is nice. It's modern. The aircrafts are generally cleaner and in much, much better shape than the older aircraft in Egypt Air's fleet. It's nothing I would jump to fly. That's why it's an only option, especially having to transit through Cairo Airport, which is not my preferred place to transfer. You've probably heard a lot of stories about transiting there. The rest of their aircraft, the A330 and the 777, 100% go here. Those aircraft are so rough and in such bad state that for sure I would not fly them, even if I didn't have any other choice at this point. I reviewed their A330 back in 2020, I think, early 2020. You can check out that video if you want. It's a very rough video, but it will give you some insight into why Egypt Air's A330s and 777s are not my favorite. Or I also did their 777 in 2022, if you want to have a look at that. Then we have Ethiopian, which is an airline I think, and a lot of people who actually fly them think is a severely underrated carrier. They do what I always encourage, which is incorporating their national culture and identity into the experience, which makes flying them so much fun. I always say, if you're not going to go for luxury, go for fun. And that is what Ethiopian, I think, does in a very Ethiopian way. So I personally enjoy flying them a lot. And Ethiopian frequent flyers are going to think I'm crazy because I'm dividing Etihad and Gulf Air based on seats. But with Ethiopian, I'm not. It's just that they have everything from a 222 almost angled business class on certain 787s to lovely reverse herringbone direct aisle access seats on other aircraft. But I think ultimately for me, Ethiopian still gets to go up here and take my points. They're after Turkish, but they are a high quality carrier that is quite enjoyable to fly and a very good way to get around Africa. For Kenya Airways, Kenyans are some of my favorite people in the world, and I think Kenya is such an awesome place to visit. But Nairobi Airport is really not my favorite place to transit. I've been there a few times now, and Kenya Airways, they're a decent airline, but I still think potentially I'm going to put them up here in red eye because it's not like, I would still definitely choose them over these options down here, an only option. But it's not like I'm running to fly Kenya Airways, okay? That's the truth. So next up, we have El Al, which I've only flown long haul once, and it wasn't even a true long haul. It was just Tel Aviv to London. But the experience was pretty decent, so much so that I'm going to put them... Ooh, where do I put them compared to Etihad's 777? I mean, ultimately, they have very nice modern cabins, and I know a lot of people aren't really looking to connect on El Al, so it's not as much of a comparison between them and these other airlines in the Gulf. But I think in terms of quality, they get to go here because, as I said, the cabins are modern, clean, and the soft product is fine. Now we get to Qatar Airways. Qatar Airways, where do they go? We have 5 different categories, which is a lot, the most of any airline, as you can see. But Qatar Airways has about a dozen different business class products. So we could divide them even more if we wanted to, but I've tried to keep things as simple as possible here. So on that note, we start out with their A330s and their 777 Classics. So they have a few of these left with their old 222 configuration, which just feels really worn out and rough to the point where I really would rather fly their A330s. Even though the seat is definitely inferior, the 777s just feel old, and they could have Q Suite, but for some reason they don't. They also have 2 types of A330s. I should say here, they have an Oman Air A330, or a few of those that they acquired in the past few years. And then they have their traditional A330s, which have the same sort of business class seat you'll find on the Gulf Air A321neo, actually. I still think, and here's where the alliance comes into it, I have a very strong preference for Oneworld and being able to earn those points. I'm very loyal to Oneworld. I think it's by far the best alliance in the world, in my opinion, in terms of how they reward their customers and the access to lounges. Not that Qatar gives access to very good lounges. If you have status, that is, the status lounges are not the same as the business and first class lounges for their other passengers. But when you fly them, you can earn points to get status in Oneworld. So I think for me, these aircraft, although in some ways they're inferior to some of the other options on this list, I still put them here in red eye at the top of red eye. Next up, we have the Qatar Airways A320. So these are the same seats that Qatar has on their A330s, on certain A330s, and the same seats that Gulf Air has on their A321neos. So on that note, I think they need to go here for me because this, again, is actually a scaled back soft product compared to some of Qatar Airways' other aircraft because they're limited by what they can do in the galleys and stuff like that. But because it's one world, they still get to come out ahead of Gulf Air. Oh, I accidentally made 2 Qatar Airways A330s, so there's going to be one that's just down here. Try not to be bothered by that if you have OCD. I'm so sorry. Then we have the Qatar Airways reverse herringbone seats. So this is what you'll find on certain A350s, on certain 787s, actually all 787s, the 787-8 and the 787-9, although they have different types of reverse herringbones, and then on the A380, of course. And I'm struggling where to put it in relation to Etihad because it's one world. And again, one world for me gets such a strong preferential treatment. I'm gonna have to put it ahead of Etihad just because I wanna earn one world points. I think it's so much more valuable than, unfortunately, the partners that Etihad has. Even if you credit your points to American, for example, you're not gonna earn status qualifying points, which defeats the purpose of crediting your points there, in my opinion. And then finally, of course, we have Qatar Airways Q Suite, which immediately goes to number 1. There's not much to say there. It's the best. It is the best on this ranking so far. It's still one of the world's best business class seats, and we're getting Q Suite 2.0 in a few years, which is probably going to blow Q Suite 1.0 out of the water. Now, let's move into another airline, which you can book using points, by the way. Another good option for points from especially Europe to Asia. Royal Jordanian, and they currently have the same business class seat on their 787s as you'll find on the Qatar A320 and A321neo from Gulf Air. So we're talking a lot of similar seats here, but again, because 1, it's a wide body on their 787, and 2, it's one world, I think I've got to put it here. But the thing is, they fly a lot of non-lie-flat A320neos and even Embraers on long flights to Europe. We're talking 4 or 5 hours on a jet that has a regional first class product, like US first class or business class and most of the rest of the world outside Europe. I think because of that, since I've grouped Royal Jordanian all into one, they have to go here because they have a nice soft product. And again, they're one world. I like transiting in Oman, their hub, but yeah, they're going to be here in red eye for now. Solid option, but with very tough competition. Next up, we have Saudia, an airline that I've ended up flying quite a lot in the past few years, since 2023. So I feel quite familiar with them, and I feel very confident with where to put them. So we're going to start out here with their, quote, old product, which is basically everything that they don't have on their 787s and certain 777s. So for example, their A330s, again, largely have the same seats as Qatar's A320s, Royal Jordanian, and Gulf Air. They also have, that seat on certain 777s as well, which I flew from Jeddah to Jakarta a few years ago. A horrible flight because I had food poisoning. It was very lovely besides me having food poisoning, but the food poisoning was not so fun. So for me, I actually think Saudia has a fantastic soft product. And even if, now I'm grouping in a bunch of aircraft again, including A320s that have this seat as well. But even though they don't serve alcohol, I think they have a great non-alcoholic beverage selection with so many nice choices. So for me, Saudia's, I actually think it's going to go here, Saudia's old business class. But then their reverse herringbone from the 787 and certain 777s, I think gets to go all the way here. So their Sky Team, which again, in some ways makes them better than Etihad and Gulf Air in this case, because you can credit your points to a variety of airlines. I would credit them to Air France KLM Flying Blue, because I think that's a great program. But I still think Abu Dhabi is preferable to transit over Saudi. So their reverse herringbones will end up right here and take my points. Although it's not that easy to redeem points for Saudia because they only usually release one award seat per flight, but that's another topic. Now, before I get to Emirates, because I know a lot of you guys are waiting to see where they end up in this ranking compared to the others, let's do Oman Air, an airline that has such a special place in my heart because they were the first Middle Eastern airline I ever flew out of all these airlines back in early 2017. I was 19 years old. I booked a crazy good deal from Cairo to Bangkok, like $600 round trip in business class on Oman Air. And it was magical. It was such a special, memorable experience for me. So it makes me very sad to see how Oman Air has kind of deteriorated in a lot of ways, going from an ambitious airline looking to compete, beautiful hub airport, can I add, but they're really not what they used to be. So we're going to start here with their 787, which is by far their best plane. They have the same Apex Suite business class as Gulf Air has. And because they're one world, I think they still, I don't know where to put them in relation to Saudia, to be honest, because I do think Saudia might be slightly more premium, but I still have a very special place in my heart for Oman Air. And because they're one world, I think they get to go up here and take my points. But really, the experience is not what it used to be, which is a shame. Then we have their 737s and predominantly 737 MAX aircraft. And these, unfortunately, are being used on flights that are like 6 hours long from Muscat to Thailand, for example, to Munich, to Zurich, a lot of premium markets in Europe, which I really don't think is cool because sure, Gulf Air flies, certain aircraft to Istanbul, for example, that we have down here. Etihad flies those same aircraft to Greece, but that's really as far as they go. You will not find them flying to the likes of Zurich, which is a very premium market, or Germany. You might find Gulf Air's A321neos, but those have lie flat seats. So although I think these aircraft are very nice, actually, okay, I'm still going to put them here, but I will say I would 100% avoid their 737s for those 6-hour flights. And now we get to Emirates. How do they stack up against the big giants next door? Let's start out here with Emirates. So here again, I use C to denote classic. Emirates 777 with the infamous 232 business class layout, a middle seat in business class on one of the world's allegedly most premium airlines in 2025. These are being phased out quite fast as we speak, but it's still on about 60 aircraft or possibly even more. I struggle with where to put this because I really have a soft spot for Emirates soft spot for the soft product. But for me, Emirates feels so fun to fly. And although this seat is obviously inferior to a lot of these options, I still think I need to put them here to be honest with myself that I would pay to fly this, although only in certain circumstances, but it's not that terrible if you pre-plan and you get the 2 seats by the window if you're traveling with someone else. It does have very high walls, so it feels quite private. Luckily, we have a lot of better options from Emirates, including their A350s and 777s with their new cabins. So those, okay, obviously they're lovely. Their A350s are lovely. Their reconfigured 777s are great as well. So for me, those get to go up here and take my money. Fantastic experience. Again, you won't have a door or anything like that. But as I mentioned in my review that I posted a few weeks ago, people always board Emirates, specifically on these aircraft where they walk through business class. And you just hear them as they're walking by going, wow, oh my gosh, because there's something that even though on paper, competitively, it's still not the strongest seat in 2026. People are somehow wowed by it because it has such a glitzy vibe. And I'm drawn in by that too. It kind of makes you forget that the seat is not the most competitive and it makes it very enjoyable to fly. And then of course, we have the Emirates A380, which is so iconic and so fun to fly that for me, 100% it goes here. It's limited by not being in one world. That's the one thing. If it was in one world, I might even put it ahead of Q Suite, which I know a lot of people would think is crazy. But because I can earn the points I want with Qatar, they end up ahead. And obviously, objectively, Q Suite is a better seat than what Emirates has on the A380. But just the fact that Emirates has so many A380s and so many people get to enjoy this iconic aircraft, they 100% go up here. Because whenever I can, I will book the Emirates A380. It's just something we really have to enjoy while we can. It won't be around for that much longer. And finally, we have Kuwait Airways, which I actually just added here to kind of tease you guys. I haven't flown Kuwait Airways business class, and that's what this ranking is. But I just wanted to add them here to say that I had that experience earlier this year. You might have seen my video. If you haven't, you can check out my whole Kuwait Airways saga when I flew their first class. And it was not quite what I expected, but really, I don't think it pointed to that much being wrong with the airline. It was just a very icky situation that, of course, for me makes Kuwait Airways go here, because I wouldn't choose to fly them again just because I'm worried what would happen if I did, even though I think it would be fine. And the airline and even the country were very receptive and kind about the feedback. I personally wouldn't feel comfortable doing it based on the experience I had, but I'm not going to put them on this list because that's unfair, because I haven't tried their business and I probably won't anytime soon, but we'll see. So here we have it, my 2025 Middle Eastern airline tier list. And by the way, this changes every single time I take a flight on one of these airlines. The ranking can change every single day, and it's probably going to change a lot even next year with the launch of Riyadh Air. I'm so excited to see where they end up on this ranking with Q Suite 2.0 coming soon. We know that Emirates has a business class seat with doors in the works, probably for the 777X. So where will that go on this ranking? We have a new Turkish Airlines seat. Where will they end up? We have FlyDubai 787s. There is always so much happening in this region, which is why it's such an exciting part of the world to review. If you enjoyed this video and you haven't watched my other tier lists, make sure you check those out, my European one and my Americas one. I want to remind you one final time that if you've been thinking about joining PointsMaster and learning how to fly business for a fraction of the price wherever you live in the world, do not forget to check it out, because the sale is ending in about 36 hours from when this video goes live. So do not miss that chance if flying more comfortably is on your 2026 bucket list. Or for that matter, if you already fly business, but you're kind of sick of paying the really high prices, you can also join PointsMaster to learn how to save quite a bit. Thank you for tuning in. I will see you all in my next video. It's time for me to go to sleep after such a long trip. And yeah, until then, as always, fly safe.